Hello everyone, Lily here. Today we are going to talk about map questions in the listening test. The methods I'm going to share with you work 100% because this is exactly how I got an 8.5 3 times. And even when I didn't get an 8.5, I was still able to manage to get an 8. And look at the feedback viewers left on another listening video of mine. Using my methods, a lot of them also got an A or even 8.5 in the listening test. So the method I'm going to share with you is that you have to identify the reason why you fail to find an answer. Is it because there is so much information for you to handle? I don't think so. As you can see, there isn't much information to read on a map. Or is it because the speakers speak so fast that you can't follow them? I don't think the speakers in the listening test speak fast at all except in part 3. So I think for most of us, the main reason why we fail to find an answer is that we don't know or we are not familiar with the expressions used to tell locations or directions. We don't use those expressions in our daily lives. We are not familiar with them. And I think the only way to fix this problem is to get familiar with those expressions used to tell locations or directions. Let me show you how. Now, let's try to find where the cafe is. If you can find it, that's great. If you can't, it's okay. We will identify the reason why you can't find it and then help you improve, okay? But of course, we need to read the map first. So here is reception, and here we have an open courtyard, and here we have a factory, and we have some trees here and here, and there are also 2 roads. The main road and the access road. Now, I will play the audio and you try to find where the cafe is, okay?
Okay, now I'll briefly help you to orientate yourselves around the site. As you can see, we're in the reception area, which we try to make attractive and welcoming to visitors. There's a corridor running left from here, and if you go along that, the door facing you at the end is the entrance to the cafe. This looks out onto the main road on one side and some trees on the other, and that'll be where you meet each morning.
So the answer is H. This room is the cafe. If you fail to find the answer, try to identify the reason why you fail. So the speaker says, we are in the reception area. So we are here, right? And then she says, there is a corridor running from here. Did you get lost when you heard the word corridor? Did you stop to think, oh my god, what is a corridor? If so, if the word corridor is the problem, you should definitely write down this word in your notebook and also look it up in the dictionary. So a corridor is a long walkway. This is a corridor. This is also a corridor. So there is a corridor running left from here. Did you fail to find which way is left because you didn't know which direction you are facing? If this is the case, you just have to keep in mind that at the beginning, we are facing the north side, okay? So we are facing the north. That means this direction is left. So we go along this corridor. The door facing you at the end is the entrance to the cafe. So you hear the word end. You know the cafe is either H or I, but you are not sure. You can't decide which one is the cafe. If this is the reason, try to identify the reason why you can't find the cafe between H and I. Is this because you didn't pay much attention to the word door? The door facing you at the end. So obviously she's talking about this door, right? This door is facing us at the end. This door doesn't face us at the end. This door does. So if the word door is the problem, you should definitely write it down in your notebook to remind yourself that sometimes they don't directly tell you where a room is. Instead, they tell you where the door of a room is. So this is something they do to make the answer a little bit harder to find. So next time you see a map like this, you see there are doors on the map, you will know it's very likely that they don't directly tell you where the rooms are, right? Instead, they may tell you where the doors of the rooms are. So you identify the reason why you fail like this, and then you will improve. And the last sentence simply confirms that the H is the answer. This looks out on the main road on one side, right? Main road on one side, and some trees on the other side. Here are some trees on the other side. Next, let's find where the warehouse is.
The factory is the very big room on the far side of the site. Next to it is the warehouse, which can be accessed by lorries going up the road to the turning area at the end. You can get to the warehouse by crossing to the far side of the courtyard, and then the door is on your right.
So the answer is C. If you didn't find the answer, again, try to find the reason why you didn't. So the speaker says the factory is the very big room on the far side of the site. Next to it is the warehouse. That is to say, the warehouse may be A, B, or C, right? Because the warehouse is next to the factory. And then she says, which can be accessed by lorries going up the road to the turning area at the end. If you have trouble following this sentence, don't worry. No way they use only this sentence to tell you the answer. I wouldn't worry about this sentence too much. You need to be able to identify which words are important words in map questions and which words aren't. For example, unlike the word corridor, which may appear in other listening questions, how likely is it that the word lorry appears in other map questions? It's very unlikely, isn't it? Now, let's continue. You can get to the warehouse by crossing to the far side of the courtyard. Did you stop to think, oh my god, what does it mean? If far side is the problem, you should definitely write it down in your notebook and look it up in the dictionary. So far side is the farthest or opposite side. So far side is the opposite side. So we cross to the far side of the courtyard. That means we go from here to here, right? We go to the opposite side of the courtyard. So now we are here. And then the door is on your right. As you can see, they do it again. They don't directly tell you where the warehouse is. Instead, they tell you where the door of the warehouse is. So the door is on our right. That means C must be the warehouse because its door is on our right, right? When we are here, we can't access the door of the room G. So G isn't the answer. C is the answer. Let me just quickly mention that you are not going to improve if you just watch the video and do nothing. Look at what other people say. They practiced using my methods. You have to practice, okay? So how should you practice? The goal is to get familiar with those expressions used to tell locations, right? Let me share with you this app called 11 Labs. I will link the app in the description. So you just copy and paste your notes in this text box. You can click here and choose an accent. I think for us, it makes more sense to choose a British accent, so I'm going to choose Alice. So you click this button, Generate Speech, and then they will generate a speech for you.
Corridor, a long walkway, door, far side, the farthest or opposite side.
You can click here to download the speech and listen to it again and again. This is how you can get familiar with those expressions used to tell locations. Now, let's go back to this map. Let's try to find where the staff cafeteria is.
Somewhere you'll be keen to find is the staff cafeteria.
This is right next to reception. I can confidently say that the food's very good, but the view isn't. The windows on one side look onto a corridor and courtyard, which aren't very attractive at all, and on the other onto the access road, which isn't much better.
The answer is G. If you didn't find the answer, it's okay. Let's identify the reason. So the speaker says, the staff cafeteria is right next to reception. When you heard she say right next, did you give all your attention to the word right? I actually did. When she says it, she addresses the word right so much, she's like,
right next to reception.
This is actually very misleading. It isn't that we don't know what right next means. It just means immediately next to reception. But hearing something is very different from reading something. When we hear it, we may give all our attention to the word right and go this way, right? So if right next is the problem, you should definitely write it down in your notebook to remind yourself that this is something they do to confuse us. They stresses the word right so much to make us ignore the word next. So you write it down in your notebook to remind myself that next time when you hear something like right next and right above, we should ignore the word right. The speaker is just saying next to something or above something, right? So the staff cafeteria is next to reception. That is to say, the cafeteria is either J or G. Let's continue. The windows on one side look onto a corridor and a courtyard. At this point, we still can't tell which room is cafeteria because J looks onto a corridor and a courtyard. G also looks onto a corridor and a courtyard, right? But then she says, and on the other onto the access road. Now we know the answer must be G because G looks onto the access road. Next, the meeting room.
You'll be using the meeting room quite often, and you'll find it by walking along the corridor to the left of the courtyard and continuing along it to the end. The meeting room is the last one on the right, and I'm afraid there's no natural daylight in the room.
The answer is B. This one is easy because we already know what a corridor is. So we walk along the corridor to the left of the courtyard. She's talking about this corridor, right? Continuing along it to the end, we go to the end. The meeting room is the last one on the right. So B is the meeting room. This one is easy. Next, the human resources.
Then you'll need to know where some of the offices are. The Human Resources Department is at the front of this building, so you head to the left along the corridor from reception, and it's the second room you come to. It looks out onto the main road.
The answer is I. If you didn't find it, identify the reason. So the speaker says, the Human Resources Department is at the front of the building. When you heard the front, did you go this side of the building? If so, you just have to remember, for a plan like this is actually the back of the building, and this part is the front. So you just have to take notes and remember, okay, the department is at the front of the building, so we should look at this side of the building. You head to the left along the corridor from reception. Did you get so confused by this sentence? What does she mean by left along the corridor? Left alone actually shouldn't be read together. It should be read as head to the left. So we go this way, right? Which left? The one along the corridor from reception. So she's talking about this left. If this sentence is so confusing for you, you should definitely write it down in your notebook. You can use the app I showed you to generate a speech of this sentence. You listen to it again and again, and when you listen to it, picture that you first go to the left. Which left? The left along the corridor from reception. So you listen to it and picture which way you should go along. So we go along this corridor, and it's the second room you come to. So the second room is this room, right? So I is the answer. Finally, the boardroom.
And finally, the boardroom, where you'll be meeting sometimes. That has quite a pleasant view, as it looks out onto the trees. Go along the corridor past the courtyard, right to the end. The boardroom is on the left, next to the factory.
The answer is A. So the speaker says, the boardroom looks out onto the trees. That is to say, the boardroom must be on this side of the building, right? And then she says, go along the corridor past the courtyard. She must be talking about this corridor because this corridor passes the courtyard. And then right to the end. Look, they do this again. They stress the word right instead of the word and to confuse us. If this confuses you, you should definitely write it down in your notebook to remind myself that when they stress the word right, you don't fall into that trap. The speaker just means go to the end. So we go to the end. The boardroom is on the left next to the factory. So A is the boardroom because A is on the left. So far we have been talking about how you should practice at home. Now, how should we read the questions and the map? I don't think you should spend too much time reading the questions and the map because you should look at a bigger picture. If you don't use the time in easier sections to read the questions in harder sections, you won't be able to get a very high score in listening test. I would go through the questions and the information on the map quickly and not slowly. If I don't get an answer correct, it's probably because I'm not familiar with the expressions that the speaker uses to tell locations. It's probably not because I read the questions and the map fast. So I read them quickly, and if the audio doesn't start to play, I will go to part 3 and read part 3. I know it sounds weird, but this is exactly how many of my viewers and I got an A or even 8.5 in the listening test. I highly recommend that you check out this video. In this video, I talk about how you can manage to read harder questions twice, not just once, twice, okay? So I highly recommend checking out this video. Now let's practice. So this is the notes we took. So now we know what a corridor is, and we also know that if a map has doors, right? It has doors. The speaker may not directly tell us where a room is. Instead, they may tell us where the door of that room is. So pay attention to doors if the speaker mentions them. And we also know that the speaker may stress the word right, like right next. Don't fall into that trap. She's just saying next to something or to the end. Now let's read the questions and the map, okay? So we need to find where the box office is, where the theater's manager's office is, where the lighting box is, and where the artistic director's office is. Now the map. So there are 2 entrances. That is to say, at the beginning, we are probably either here or here. And keep in mind that we should just assume that we are facing the north side of the building. And there is a road, and there is a water cooler here, and there are also double doors. That's it. Now let's listen to the audio. Let's see if you can get all the answers correct.
Now, a word about the layout of the building. The auditorium, stage and dressing rooms for the actors are all below ground level. Here on the ground floor, we have most of the rooms that the public doesn't see. The majority are internal, so they have windows in the roof to light them. Standing here in the foyer, you're probably wondering why the box office isn't here, where the public would expect to find it. Well, you might have noticed it on your way in. Although it's part of this building, it's next door, with a separate entrance from the road. For the theatre manager's office, you go across the foyer and through the double doors. Turn right, and it's the room at the end of the corridor, with the door on the left. The lighting box is where the computerized stage lighting is operated, and it's at the back of the building. When you're through the double doors, turn left, turn right at the water cooler, and right again at the end. It's the second room along that corridor. The lighting box has a window into the auditorium, which of course is below us. The artistic director's office is through the double doors, turn right, and it's the first room you come to on the right-hand side. And finally, for the moment, the room where I'll take you next, the relaxation room. So, if you'd like to come with me.
Alright, did you get all the answers correct? Have you improved already? Let me know in the comment section. And don't forget to check out this video in which I talk about how you should read the questions so that you can read harder questions twice. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!